Welcome. Yeah, we're using a professional system to mix our music here. No, we're not. John Channel, welcome. But welcome everybody. Welcome back to Wine Wednesday. We're starting the year off. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I think it's been since before Thanksgiving, our last Wine Wednesday. But
I like it when you send me little likes and things like that. That's funny.
We have a big year planned for the ISA. A lot of things happening on our side on all levels, right? From the contests.
Oh my God, it's going to be huge.
Events to our creative screenwriter productions. We got a bunch of movies and TV shows we're going to try to get made. A whole bunch of writers we're trying to help out. Felicity's been crazy busy just in the past 2 weeks talking to all of our development slate writers. There's a lot going on. So
yeah, Top 25 2020 were announced at the end of the year, and I've had individual calls with all of them, and also the new people on the development slate. Someone just did me the angry face. Thank you, which is my favorite. It is my favorite, but it's bad for everyone. It looks like no one hates. It looks like everyone hates what we're saying, but doesn't realize that it's my absolute favorite. So it kind of gives everyone mixed messages. So yeah, so we've got some new people in development slate. Sorry, I was just itching my bottom. Great. I suddenly realized you could see that.
You are live on national Facebook news.
That's my bottom, just there.
All right. We don't need it. Happy New Year, Lee J. You came in right at the right time. It takes me away is right.
So yeah, I've got that written on my T-shirt for all podcast listeners.
Yeah, right.
Yes, so it's actually been great. We have a few tools. I've created my own tool that I'm very happy with.
We're going to be sharing that with all of you. Felicity's been on one phone call after another talking to all the development slate writers how to get their year planned. So this is a nice little segue. And I had a webinar this morning that we offer for free to ISA Connect members, and I kind of did a whole review of how we can go through the brainstorming and development process into the outlining stage. We're going to talk about that too. So we're going to a lot to cover, a ton of announcements.
Let's just say thank you first to Nickelodeon. Yeah. We have a different setup because for some reason
we've had technical difficulties since Napa Valley Film Festival.
Since Napa Valley. I don't know what happened at Napa. Maybe some wine fell into some kind of some portal.
It's very strange, but we're not able to put the logos on the screen.
So but it is Nickelodeon writing program is the sponsor for tonight, as well as Steel Wines. So Carissa, our beautiful, wonderful, talented, also someone producing movies
material, yeah,
and Carissa will put that up for us for the logo and for the brief, which I have to read out because they have specific language. I do apologize. The Nickelodeon writing program offers emerging television writers from around the world a paid opportunity to develop their craft and launch their careers. While in the program, writers hone their skills, build a professional network, and gain real-world experience in writers' rooms for our critically acclaimed live action and animated shows. Visit nickwriting.com for all the details And be sure to follow them on Facebook at Nick Writing and Twitter at Nick Writing for updates, tips, and giveaways. So I think we've talked about this before. A good way to start your new year, and maybe one of your resolutions, is to try and get some money for free to do some writing. And actually applying for fellowships and writing programs is a way to do that. There's a whole host of them. You can Google it online. And I'm very distracted right now. It sounds fine. You can Google it online, and there are plenty of others. However, Nickelodeon is our absolute favorite because they are incredibly supportive of writers. Also, there's a bit of, I don't think some people don't apply to them because they think it's all animation. It's not. They have live action shows too. And you get paid while you learn, and you make connections, and they are just a really
free
great
to apply.
company.
It's, most studios have fellowships and writing programs. Nickelodeon is one of the best. If you don't want to write an animation or kids animation, you don't have to submit an animated show.
No, they have a whole host of shows.
Yeah.
You write a spec pilot basically based on a whole load of options of current TV programs.
Yeah.
So they are absolutely wonderful. And then maybe one more thing to talk about quickly is our Third Thursdays events.
We have them.
Tomorrow is is a Third Thursday for the whole of the world. It's
all
the
you
Third
have to do
Thursday
is count, and it's
of the month.
Thursday of the month.
And we have a special event happening in LA. It is the first annual Young Hollywood Writers Night in collaboration with the JHRTS. The event in LA is actually now on waitlist in LA, but there's going to be 2 panels. You're going to be in one of them, aren't you? You're hosting.
I'm hosting the second one. Amy Sullivan is one of our fellow coworkers.
She is a young Hollywood writer.
She is, yeah. And it's going to be 2 panels. It's going to be jam-packed. It's going to be cool and fun. But we have Third Thursdays events all over. You need to go to the events page to see if there's a Third Thursdays event close to you. If you want to host your own, you can email us. But Third Thursdays, we do it every month, all the way up through November, and then we have a holiday party sometimes in December. But we just had a staff holiday party this year. But anyway, the Third Thursdays events are a great way to be
amazing.
started.
And there's one more I have to mention, and sorry, I don't touch the table. And that is the Chicago special event in collaboration with Creative Cypher.
Creative Cypher is amazing. If you're in the Midwest or Chicago, they're awesome.
So their Third Thursday event is happening alongside Creative Cypher, and it's the launch of the Chicago Film Accelerator. This is a pitching event. There's more info. Production teams pitch their short film or pilot projects before the CFX panel of judges from SAG-AFTRA, Mezcal Collective, and Free Street Theatre. The panel will choose one winning project for a package of support to get their projects produced within 90 days. So it's an event that's a pitch panel event, but with the end result of if your pitch is chosen as the winner, that you'll actually get help in the production of that pitch that you're pitching. So if you're in Chicago, you should go to this Creative Cypher event. You can Google Creative Cypher. I'm sure we'll be able to put something in the comments to go to their website. Creative Cypher is awesome. They're doing a lot of stuff. Yes, we're a big fan. And actually, we met the founder of Creative Cypher when he was a reader at Table Read My Screenplay Sundance. He was an actor and a panelist.
4 years
2016.
ago. 2016.
And so that's how we met. How we met Troy, and we've remained friends. And he has gone from strength to strength. So yeah, so proud of him and so proud of what Creative Cypher are doing. Yeah. There are lots of people. What I like is it's the community trying to help each other. Yeah. They really do love writers and performers.
And that's what we're trying to do.
So yes. So
that's what we're doing with these Wine Wednesdays. So every other week or so, probably about once or twice a month at the very least, we're going to be doing these Wine Wednesdays. Coming up throughout the year, we're going to have some special guests where people will replace me. They'll sit in with Felicity. We're going to have some people on.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Felicity's not going anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere. That's a good thing or a bad thing, but I remain.
Yeah. We've got so much going on. I have a Story Farm workshop intensive that I can talk about later. We got that coming up. We've got a bunch of things. So
yeah. So anyway, so cheers.
Cheers to our sponsors, Nickelodeon and Creative Cypher. Thank you so much.
And Still Wines. Thank you, Still Wines.
So there it is.
That is delicious, right?
All right, so what are we talking about today?
We are talking about starting a writer's schedule, keeping on it, and getting stuff done over the year.
God forbid that you actually stay productive this year. And one way to do that is to just sit down and write. But you hear that all the time. People are always saying, well, you just have to write. Well, you have to know how to write, not just literal action of writing, but you have to know how to approach that. So what we're going to do we're going to talk. We'll bounce back and forth. Maybe we'll just kind of try this out because Felicity's got a whole plan for you that she's going to talk about. I have a little plan in terms of how to approach the brainstorming and development process. It's really, oh, and here we go with the beeping. Mine is extremely extensive because it's a full development process so I'm not going to go through every single step. But I will say,
look how blue my eye.
Look how big her face is.
Look how big my face is.
Felicity needs to switch over and turn a little sound off that everybody heard, I'm sure, on the recording. But everybody loves your face close to the screen. So let's say this year you have a plan to finish 2 scripts. Great. I would argue that if you can get 10 to 12 hours of real work in every week, not research, not watch movies for comps and stuff, which is part of the process, but it's not actually real writing. 10 to 12 hours a week. If you stay consistent through the process that I help my writers go through, for one, and I'll go through it. If you can do that, I argue you can do 4 scripts that are fully developed by the end of the year. It's a lot, sounds daunting, but imagine if you had 4 scripts done by January 15, 2021. So you're moving into 2021 with a full slate of projects on top of the ones you've already finished. And that 4th script is probably going to be that much better than the other 3 because you've done this over and over and over again. And that's really the whole point. So I've talked to Felicity about this. I go through this with all of my writers, all of our writers. Concept, character development, structure, page work. If there's anything you remember from this little Wine Wednesday broadcast tonight, it's just that little list, if you will, from top down to bottom: concept, character development, structure, page work.
We should have written that out.
I think it's pretty, hopefully, easily enough to remember. But if you can remember that, everything starts from that place, and that's what readers are thinking about. That's what executives and managers and producers innately are just in the back of their head, considering those 4 levels of development when they're reading a script. And it's the same exact thing a writer needs to be doing too, because, and the point being, if you jump right to pages, which we see happen far too often, you have one idea of a setup, basic concept, and you open up Final Draft and you start writing it. You're going to get through maybe 20, 30, 40 pages if you're lucky, and you're going to realize, I don't know where I'm going, I'm putting myself into a corner, this is working very well, I don't like it, put it aside, and suddenly you don't have anything finished. And the reason I'm going back to this 4 levels of development is because you're going to the bottom level of development first. You need to be focusing on concept first. Is my concept unique? What's the second act situation that I'm going to be putting the audience through? What is the character going to be experiencing over and over again? I call it the recurring moment. You have to look at all that bird's eye view stuff. Then you get into character development. Okay, what are the flaws and traits and personality issues, the problems, the want versus need for the main character? You do the same for the secondary character and the opponent. There are all these different story elements that you need to be working through. And in the webinar that I hosted this morning, I went through all of them, and there are a lot. And you have to be looking at all these things before you even get into structure, because once then you have concept and character figured out, you can start placing those things within a sequential order based on what's supposed to be happening roughly every 10 pages. Then you're working within that sequence outline for a while, 3, 4, 5 weeks, and that then feels like you're going through 1 or 2 drafts. Then by the time you're done with the outline, you get into pages. And that should take you 2 months. By the end of that 3rd month, maybe 4, you're done with the script, because when you're writing those pages, you've done all that work. So now you've got just the fun part, all the action and the dialogue, and you can deal with the formatting, transitions. Do I do a fade to here? You're figuring out tone and visuals. That stuff is important, but not if you haven't yet figured out concept, character development, and structure. And it just helps because now you've got 3 months of all that pre-prep work done, and you spend a month actually writing the script, 10 hours a week. It's very doable. Granted, you're going to come across hurdles. You might come across a little bit of writer's block here and there. That's the really quick of it. I mean, obviously I can go into more detail, but I don't want to just be the only one talking because that happens a lot. But hopefully that makes some sense. I'm going to go through it a little bit more as we continue going here, but and then you just start in a new script once you're done.
I think the hardest thing is to create a habit. Mm-hmm. And there are plenty of books that you can read about creating habits to stop you creating a habit. basically, so that you can learn how to create a habit and then never create one. I think that's the trouble. Procrastination is the enemy of all things. And the way I think to create a habit is to do it every day for 3 weeks, isn't it? They say it's like 21 days of you doing something new and keeping doing it. And you can kind of program it into your existence. I have stupid ones like making my bed every day. The first thing I do when I get up in the morning is clean my teeth. You know, there are certain things that have become like a habit. I want to kind of like wash away the grime from the stuff overnight. And the same can kind of happen, I think, from finding a moment to doing yoga every day, to meditating before sleep every night. You know, do these different, I mean, I feel like there are so many things you could try and do to improve your life that it becomes almost impossible. So you have to choose the ones that actually do improve your life. And if telling story,
important to you.
Yeah, so if telling story and if actually working out who you are, kind of figuring out what you want the world to look like is part of that for you. If that is, you know, you have this need to get the story across, then figuring out time in your schedule to allow yourself to do that is actually a kind of self-love and self-care.
Yeah, I mean, I broke down in my craft course, this online course that I created. You can go to thecraftcourse.com if you want, but I broke down the actual amount of hours you really do have any given month. I mean, any given day, any given week, any given month, and then throughout the year. And it's a lot if you really look at it.
I think the thing is, like, I feel like if you, I mean, I don't know. I also allow myself 15 minutes in the morning to look through Instagram.
Yeah, you got to be structured, but also disciplined.
But so I feel like, so there are some fun things like that. But the amount of time that we spend on social media, if
it's crazy,
if just one of those hours was put aside each day to writing, that actually would mean that would add up pretty quickly. I
mean, if you're putting 10 hours a week toward your writing, that's roughly an hour and a half a day, or 2 hours a day for 5 days a week, and you've got 2 days off. At the very least, you can look at it that way, just mathematically speaking. But if you really count down how many hours are in a day, if you have 24 hours, and I don't remember this off the top of my head, but 24 hours, let's say you got 8 hours for sleep, you're at 16 hours. Let's say you work a day job for 8, so that leaves, did I get that
16,
right?
so that leaves you 8 hours left.
So you've got 8 hours left. Let's say 2 more hours for commute. So you're down to 6. Let's say you got, 2 more hours, which is a lot for just basic.
That's the boss of the other side. I'm allowed to play it.
You've got another 2 hours for just entertainment. If you want to go out to eat and get dinner, just have a little fun, you're still left with 4 hours that you could technically work with. And then let's say you scrape off another 2 for miscellaneous, who knows what, what happens, probably another 3 if you have a child, if you're a parent. It still leaves you with probably an hour to 2 hours every day that's actually available to you to write. And it's very doable to be able to approach it that way. And it feels, if you can look at things in that real mathematical, right-brained approach, it allows you to help yourself get organized, but also it feels doable. Then you're like, oh, well, wait a minute, I do actually have that time.
I think it's that whole thing about starting a long journey takes us one step, is that, obviously when you're sat there for an hour, you're not going to be able to write for an hour. That isn't going to happen unless you're on a real kind of streak. But if you sit there and you think about the different characters, so maybe you're not writing the whole time, but you start just to kind of imagining having these people talk to you about who they are and what they do and what they like, really filling in the depths of who they are.
That's still writing.
That is fun, yeah, and that is still writing. And it's not kind of the trawl of dialogue on the page. It's the kind of excitement of imagination.
And that's part of that process of, once you figure out what your concept is, figuring out the uniqueness, the recurring moment, the situation that is going to occur throughout the second act, just the high level stuff, you move into character development. And that's something that I call windows listing and scene listing, without any structural approach, it's a completely non-linear approach to brainstorming. It's just lists. And windows, it's really fun because you come up with a character at first. Most of you, when you have a new idea, or if you're looking at a rewrite, you already know your character, generally speaking, but you just make a list of windows into the soul of who this person is. Not through lines of dialogue, not through actual interactions the character is going to be having with other people or big scenes, but basic things like the kind of car they drive, the clothes they wear, the type of bedside clock they have, the posters on the wall, if they have a cane, what kind of hats, all that stuff. You just list them all. And even if they don't wear a hat, then it's something. They never wear a hat because of this. And it turns into this long list. And I try to force my writers to come up with 50 of them.
Force.
Yeah, I push my writers, is a nicer way of saying it, to come up with 50 of those things. Whether they're used in the script or not doesn't even matter. And then you do the same thing with scenes, potential scenes that have to do specifically with the character's flaw, something that's going to be forcing that character to confront the issues going on in a personal way.
Well, what I like about that is it just allows your imagination to run riot.
Yeah.
And you might not even know how this kind of like inane fact is going to become a plot point, and then suddenly later on it will. I've been helping someone develop their script for a sizzle that we're doing for Shoot Your Sizzle, and we needed to kind of come to this other point at the end of the first scene that we're going to do, and then we were looking for a kind of a nice button. Now, he wrote the kind of the end of the first scene in a kind of an arbitrary kind of like it's a joke, but he wrote it as an arbitrary thing. And then he wrote a different ending for the very end of the sizzle. And I said to him, you know what? Let's go back and let's do a callback to that end button of the first scene, because I reckon we can use it again to tie off the whole thing for the sizzle. And I think it's going to work really well. And when he wrote that little button at the end of the first scene, he had no idea it was going to become the whole sign-off for the piece. But those little accidents, those little kind of imagination accidents are just so satisfying and kind of synchronistic and delicious. And if you don't know who these people are, you can't find those. So I think just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Just for the fun of it.
And that's kind of what Quentin Tarantino was famous for, and still might be, is that he would, if he had you okay? You look like it hurt. If he had an idea for a scene, he would just go to the pages and write it. So when I went through the 4 levels, concept first, then character development, then structure, then page work, it doesn't mean you can't touch the pages. If you have an idea for a scene, then write the scene. But don't worry about whether it's working or where it's going to place or land or what's going to happen next or before it. Just write the scene because you have an idea for some fun lines of dialogue and you play it out. Quentin Tarantino would do that all the time, and he would have a drawer full of these scenes. And if you watch Pulp Fiction, it's pretty much him just putting all those scenes into a thing and trying to make it work, because it was just, structurally speaking, completely ridiculous. But
I'm doing the dance of Pulp Fiction now.
It's a part of your brainstorming process, So we do have a little bit of a back and forth here. My friend from home, Mark Becker, asks, what if you also have 4 kids under 8 and 2 dogs? I think you need to seriously figure out how to pay for all of that.
You need a she shed or a he shed.
You need a little she shed.
She shed, she had.
Yeah.
You need to go into the garden.
Yeah. I think that you have a point, though. You have to make that time extremely important, and work with your partner and be like, look, this is important. I need just an hour to take care of all this for a little bit. Mark, like my mom is saying, who are you kidding, Mark? Stacy does everything. Stacy is Mark's wife, and obviously my mom's kind of giving her a little rub, but or him. But which is kind of true. Stacy is always there, and she's amazing. But Mark is very lucky to have someone who's just so helpful.
I think that the way that I kind of like suggest is that, and I think this is again your habit, is you give yourself like men are notorious. This is a total sweeping generalization, but men are notorious for spending a long time in the bathroom.
Okay.
For spending a long time in the bathroom. So like taking a really long time to do a poo. Men are notorious for that. Just think, if you sped up that process and spent the other 20 minutes writing the thing, there's a whole.
I see what you're saying. I don't know if that example is perfect, because sometimes people actually have bowels that need to be relaxed, and you can't just
for
force
20 minutes.
Well, okay, 20 minutes. That's
Those people are doing a crossword or a kind of like reading an article in the.
I'm not in the bathroom for 20 minutes later.
He's not actually very good.
Good. I'm glad I had your approval.
Yeah. I approve of Max's time in the bathroom. But I think that's the thing about it, is like it's if you turn writing into a pleasure, then it's something you would like to be doing every day. And however you can do that for yourself. I mean, I personally do most things on a timer clock, which probably sounds like a bit of a crazy person, but I have a timer, a Pomodoro, but I don't have that one. I have another one that I can't remember what it's called now, that's like tied up to some to-do lists, but basically it works in 25-minute increments. So I do things for 25 minutes, it gives me 5 minutes off, 25 minutes, 5 minutes off, and that happens 4 times, and then I'm allowed 15 minutes off. And I work to this kind of timer. When I'm heating up coffee, in the morning, it gives me 2 minutes, which I'll do as many dishes as I can that are in the sink in that 2 minutes while the coffee is warming up. This is literally how I plan my life. I read this happiness blog, and he said, you know, if I'm gonna do something and it takes 1 minute, and I know it's been 1 minute, I'll do it. And I think that is what you have to start to get into. It's just like, I'm gonna sit down for 5 minutes, and I'm gonna give myself 5 minutes to sit and see if anything comes, even if it's just the name of the character in this kind of very busy day.
I think that's a big part of it, in terms of allowing yourself to not figure it out. And because that's usually what begins this so-called process of writer's block. This process of not finishing something. You know, you have to be okay with it not being good enough, that you're not going to figure it out all in one sitting. A vomit draft. See, then that's what I try to get my writers through. And Jo Bellew's on here, she can speak to this, but I try to affect that level of, so I don't really believe in writer's block, for one, but the way to get through this writer's block is to not necessarily write. And I know that sounds confusing, but I'm going to comment on writer girl Karma's comment. She says, technically 10 pages a day, every day, and in just under 2 weeks, you can have a completed feature script. And it's, yes, I love that math. I love how organized that is. The issue with that is that if you haven't done the work prior to those page writing sessions that you're going to have, those 10 pages are not going to be nearly as strong as if you just spend the time in the outline doing the concept, character development, and structure work before you get to that pages. Because technically, writer girl Karma, not to call you out, but you may be creating more work for you later with the need of rewriting.
I know, but I don't think she was saying not to do the work beforehand. She was just literally saying.
Absolutely, and yes.
And I think that's the difference about it. And I also think there's something about when you are in a moment of blockage, is that actually kind of taking a moment to stop, breathe in and out, and actually take a meditative moment to kind of go inside and work out actually what do I want this character to feel, do, or why am I telling this story, or kind of get back to something really essential that's inside. Mm-hmm. It's probably a good way to kind of fight your way out of it. I feel like that's...
Well, and you can feel it. You know, the more you do something, I don't care what it is, you can tell when you're pushing. And I keep shaking the table, but you can tell when you're forcing it. You can tell when you're trying harder than you need to. And it goes for anything. And it's usually, like, from an athletic standpoint, if you're an athlete, when you get to the point in your workout where it hurts, that's when you stop. Because, okay, I've hit that limit. And it's the same thing for any other craft or trade. If you get to a point in your writing where you just don't feel like the dialogue is stupid, or you're like the action lines, you're just not connecting with the words, stop. Get up and do something else. Take some breaths, like you're saying, just relax. Just maybe watch something on the TV for a few minutes and just come back. There's a really
great Banksy picture that he says, when you get tired, rest, don't quit. And I think that's the thing about it, is that artistic endeavor is hard. It takes it out of you. It should be exciting and thrilling, but it's also painful and tiring and exhausting if you're especially doing something emotional, or it means something that's really important to you. Don't sell yourself short. Realize that you are doing something that takes work. But it is worth it. At the end of it, you're going to have something amazing. You're going to have this beautiful record of the thoughts that have happened in your head, which I love. I love that. And and if one person reads it and is affected, you've done your job. If we hope for more.
Sometimes all you need is one person to read it, because that person's going to go do something with it. But yeah. S.A. Roberts wrote and finished her script Broken Gavel in 110 pages and finished it in 5 months.
Is it?
So 5 months is a really strong process and time frame. Sometimes I try to get my writers through it in 3 months, 2 or 3 months, but that's usually because they've been going through the process of this outlining, practice that I put them through for a while, and they get it, and they just bam, they can churn it out. The best advice, and Gregory's asking any tips for animated features. It's a pretty open-ended question, but the best advice is figure out what the general story is going to be, not just the setup, because too often we have this great idea, or at least we think it is, but it's really just talking about first act stuff. And we read a ton of writing log lines through the writing gigs that are posted and just log lines that are sent to us. And I would say probably more than 75% of them are just referencing what's going to happen in the first act. Here's the setup. The character's given this new opportunity. Almost every time I'm asking, well, then what? And we don't want to be asking then what. We want to know what happens. I mean, that what happens is the movie or the series or whatever. We want to know what happens after that opportunity, because that then is what technically creates the uniqueness. Yeah, so I think you get my point. I might just be repeating myself if I keep going. I think I had a segue too, but nonetheless, tips for animated features, Gregory, just come up with something really unique and interesting. And
we did speak to Disney Plus, didn't we? And they said it's still about story.
It's only about story. Yeah.
So don't create worlds that are animated for the sake of it.
Right.
It has to, the fact that animation gives you a freedom that live action, grounds you, and animation give you a freedom, but only if it serves the story, not because you've decided. And
let's clarify really what story means. Yes, it is the cool worlds that you're creating and the various, unique characters maybe, but it's the characters, the situation the character is in, and then the choices that character has to make that ultimately drives the story. It's what creates uniqueness. Because if you look at Finding Nemo, it's really a pretty simple story. Father lost his son, he has to go find him. But the process of him doing that, being teamed up with Dory, is and then
being underwater as a magic clownfish.
Well, okay, that's speaking to concept, but let me go through what I'm getting into character. Marlin is presented as this guy who can't let go of anything. He's completely tight-fisted around everything, especially his son. He's overprotective, everything. Dory is the exact opposite, where she quite literally forgets everything every 10 minutes.
Literally Ellen.
So she's then teamed up with him, and she's the perfect character to be that character for Marlin, so that Marlin can learn how to let go of all these things. That really has nothing to do with all the wild antics they go through and the big jellyfish thing they have to, all that stuff is fun gags. The gags add to the story, personality and the emotion and all the reason we're watching this, the reason we cry over Pixar movies, the reason we cry. Inside Out is an amazing world.
I love Inside Out.
But really at the heart of it is just this girl who didn't want to move. That's really all it is.
Well, I think that we've been talking, there's another script that we're very hot on right now, and it's MMA and
the fighter project.
Yeah, and actually it's about someone who has been messed up by their family and doesn't know if they fulfilled their purpose, and that's the key of the script, and it's
placed within
wrapped
the world
in the genre of the fight. So, and I think that's the thing about it. You can still say some very sweet or ugly or challenging, or whatever the theme or the message or the heart of your story, and then wrap it up in all sorts of genres now: horror, fantasy, fighting, action, or animation. But it really comes down to the story. Why do we care? Why do we get invested? Why do we cry over literally drawings? And it has to be that it really touches us emotionally.
Yeah, so I think that goes across the board for TV series, and if you're not going for heavy emotion like a Pixar type of, teary-eyed approach, but you want this really fun thrill ride, then you have to be allowing those characters who are going on that ride to be affected by that thrill ride. Like Sleepy Hollow, I always use it as an example, and the first season was great. Seasons 2 and 3 kind of sucked, but they weren't very good. but I like the concept itself is why I tuned in. Ichabod Crane from the Sleepy Hollow legend in today, present.
Oh my
day
God, we
stuff.
had to watch that at Christmas.
No, you didn't.
Ichabod Crane.
Oh, the original legend of Sleepy Hollow. Yeah. We watched the animated thing.
He made us watch it.
Yeah, forced you to watch this 19-minute short film. Anyway, God, what a horrible Christmas. That wasn't Christmas, that was Halloween. Anyway, Sleepy Hollow had the setup of that situation. And I think that's the key for TV. Also movies, but especially TV. What is the situation? You've got Ichabod Crane from the 1700s is in present day, fighting crime and monsters and trying to keep the devil from taking over. That's the general situation. Every single episode, you're going to see some of that. Monster of the Week, etc. They're fighting for something. But what kept you tuning in was the relationship between Abigail and Ichabod and how they were becoming closer and how they were learning from each other, and then the other little relationships and side storylines. And that goes really for every TV show that we watch. Like The Outsider, we've watched the first 2 episodes of The Outsider on HBO. Really good. Pretty grisly.
Scary Mary.
Not nearly as grisly as I thought it was going to be. They had that one moment where they showed the poor kid get murdered, but
That was a lot of red jelly, a lot of jam.
yeah, it was rough. But
Can you stop shaking the camera?
oh my goodness. So The Outsider is another good example of how you have the A story situation of a guy who is accused of killing a child, and you have a mountain of evidence proving that he did it, but you also have a mountain of evidence proving that he didn't. That's the overall situation.
So he's there and he wasn't there.
Right.
But he was there and he wasn't there.
Yeah. And so that situation is going to play out continually. At the same time, you have the storyline of the cop who's investigating. You have the storyline of the wife who's dealing with this. And then there's a separate, I think, D story with another side character that, of course, I'm forgetting. Every single TV show is going to be dealing with that type of structure where you've got an A story situation overall that's going to be going throughout. In Breaking Bad, it's again, forgetting the character's name, Walt.
And Jesse.
Walt and Jesse, primarily Walt, who literally is in the process of breaking bad, but through the process of making meth in order to take care of his family. And that just spirals out of control. So you see that every single episode. That's what I mean by the recurring moment. But
and you see his ego take over.
That's how the show evolves and what brings us back. It's the emotional connection that the audience has with that particular character and the evolution of that character and how he changes and the choices that he's making. It's just incredible. So that's still all just concept character development, right? We're not even talking about page writing. We're not talking about any side of the business of trying to shop the script and market and everything, what the industry might be looking for. We had a meeting with an agent yesterday, and she said outright, and I love it, she said, you create the demand in response to what might be trending. And she said, here are some things that are trending. But at the same time, we as writers and creators create the demand. Just write the script that you're connected to. So don't worry about what the industry wants. Don't worry about how you're going to get it into the hands of people, who you're going to submit it to, what contests you're going to win. All of that comes later. You want to be developing the best possible project you can, starting from that top-down approach, concept, character development. Because if a reader's reading something and they're not connecting with the concept and it's not very unique, they're not even going to care about the words on the page. And they don't need to, because there are so many other scripts waiting in line.
Yeah. S.A. Roberts, I love the fact that you are trying to share your stuff with us, but can you stop on the comments, please? Just because it's slightly bogging us down.
Oh.
Well, it's on my app, it is. Anyway, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and then I guess the other thing, apart from sectioning your time, is I have I think the other thing I want for writers to do for themselves.
Oh, you talked about your plan, yeah.
Is to understand that you do have some power, and not only to write the story that you want to write, but that actually you can also start to think about where it would live once it's written. And taking the time on the days when you don't feel like writing, and instead you're cleaning the cooker hood or organizing your socks.
Cooker hood.
What's it called?
For Americans, I don't know what that is.
It's
the stove?
The stove, and then the thing
the
above
vent?
it. Oh, yeah.
Okay, the vent.
The cooker hood.
Cooker hood. I'm like, I don't know, is that a neighborhood?
But on the days that you're doing that, okay, instead of doing that, go onto IMDB Pro and go down the wormhole of shows that are comps to yours. So the show that, or the feature that is comps to yours, is produced by certain people. You start there, you find the comp, you find out who produced it. From that producer's thing, you see what else they've done. You see if they've done other things that are like your other movies that you've made, or are very similar to other things that are still similar to the project that you're trying to pitch to them. Then you look at who they've worked with actor-wise, and you see where it's gone. Has it gone to Hulu? Has it gone to theatrical? Has it gone? Who have they worked with there? Who did they sell it to? Is there any names of anyone there? And you start to build a spider's web of connections. So that if you are talking to someone about your work and they go like, oh, what is it? You go like, oh, well, it's a TV series about a young man, a young woman who likes eating ice cream, and you go like, well, there was that other show about how ice cream froze her brain, and then that became a serious incident, and it turned into a hospital drama. And so then you go to Grey's Anatomy and find, I don't know, and you find out who the producers are. That is for certain episodes. There's certain directors, writers, and you can then speak intelligently about your project and who might like it. And you never know who you're speaking to or who their connections might be. And in that moment, you start to understand where your piece lives in the world. And this practical work of empowering yourself to know where your piece lives in the TV and the feature world will give you a purpose. I think this is what we're trying to get back to anyway, with the whole how can you start a habit? How can you tie yourself down to something? You have to do it because you want something, because it means something. I cannot read a play or write something if it has nowhere to go. And it's that same thing. If you're not doing it because either you want to tell a story, or you want to enter a contest, or you want to you have an act you want to write for, or I think that will really, why are you doing it? Hone in on why you're doing it. And then also you will get more interested in IMDb Pro and finding these producers and reading the trades if you have a specific purpose for it. So there's a reason for you to know who is doing the next horror feature with a tiger. I know, because you've got your own ideas about tigers, and you can then.
And that's speaking a message, though, too. It's speaking to, why are you the one to write this particular script? What do you have to share? What message and piece of information do you believe the world needs to know and learn? Even if it's a comedy, if it's just a ridiculous buddy comedy, what is it about the themes and messages that are going to be coming out through that? Like I in my webinar today, what popped into my head was Paul Rudd and Jason Segel in that movie, I Love You, Man. It's a really silly, goofy, dumb little movie, but there is something to say there, that it is difficult for men in their late 30s and early 40s who have not really established friends to make new friends, and what you need to do to get out of that shell and make new friends. And so even if it's just something like that, it's like, well, I want to tell a story about that, and it's going to be really ridiculous and over the top because of the fun little situation that these characters are in. There's still a reason for that. Now, you may not lead with that when you're reaching out to producers and saying, I have this story about these two, this gentleman who needs to try to find friends in his 40s. But maybe it's a part of it.
Well, I think the thing about that is that you have, in doing the investigation as to why they've worked with these other people, why they've produced these shows, produced these films, you have shown an interest in them, which is very flattering.
That too. Yeah, right.
You have looked at their work, which everyone loves, and then you've taken away the work and the thinking about whether or not they should look at your project or not. And this is not saying I'm going to do a cold outreach. I'm just saying this is something for you to do, so if you did get an agent or a manager, or if you did meet someone that said, how can I help you, like the ISA tries to do for our development slate, you can say, I have already got loads of ideas about where this could go, and I have reasons for it. Not just, I'm thinking this is an A24 movie. I tell you what, everyone thinks their movie is an A24 movie. Yeah. Most of them are not. However, that doesn't mean to say there aren't a million mid-level production companies that actually your story would be great for.
Yeah, right.
And with the platforms that we have now and the streaming services, there is more need for content than ever. But you need to find your way to find someone who it's going to be useful for. So it's undeniable that they at least have a look at the script.
Well, what I like about IMDb Pro, and it's $20 a month. It's just so worth it.
We're not sponsored by them, by the way.
No, not at all. But it's so worth it. And some of the information is outdated or isn't as current or whatever. You know, there are higher level industry source search engines like IMDb Pro that's like $400 a month or something. But that's just reserved for people in town because it's much more specific. IMDb Pro is great because you can select certain people, anybody. You can follow an actor or actress. You can follow a producer or manager. You can track them. And I get notifications on my phone, even if an agent signs a new client. And then I see this agent, I'm like, okay, and it's just like, all right, fine. But that name registers in my brain, and I remember that person. And that's something that we have to be doing in this industry, especially now, because all this information is at literally everyone's fingertips. But if you're in a meeting and you have recall, when this manager or whoever you're talking to is talking about these different things, and you happen to know, oh, this director really likes like this. He's a big fan of, you know, snow skiing or something. And so he might like this project because it has something to do with the Arctic, or I don't know. If you recall that, that's going to be impressive to the producer or manager you're talking to. So it's literally the joke of the more you know. You know, it's
and I
better.
wanted to kind of like, I have, for the development slate and the top 25, I have produced a document that we're calling the producer and actor map, because you can also do it via actors. So you can go like, oh, well, this actor is a perfect shoe-in for this role. I think, you know, I can see them playing this character. Who else? What else? What other films have they done? What other TV series have they done? What producers have they worked with? Have they worked with certain producers more than once? What have those producers done something that's similar to the project that I have? Work back that way too, because I tell you what, that producer is looking for the next project to take to the actor. And if you can get in touch with that producer and say, you know, or ask a manager or agent or someone like the ISA from the development say to say, can you get this project to that actor? A producer is much more likely to do so, especially if they've already worked with them, than we can't knock on the door of an agent or manager for an actor so much. Not yet.
Not as much.
We're working on it.
We're there almost. But,
but whereas actually a producer, when they're kind of we can get your stuff to a producer, and the producer knocks on the door, they're going to be like, okay, I'm going to have a look at it. Now, I would like to offer this producer map and actor map to the people that are watching. This is normally only for the development slate and the top 25. So this is, and it is just an Excel document that I have created. So there's no painting on it or anything like that, but it's just some ideas for you to start thinking in a way that allows you to spiderweb out. So if you would like to receive this Excel document, to have as a inspiration and as a way to kind of move forward with your writing, then do send us a DM. And we'll get it to you with your email address. So DM us with your email address and we'll send that to you. Because honestly, we have found this last year, I think more than ever, some incredible writers in the ISA, and with some wonderful stories that are really important and need telling. And anything we can do to keep you writing and inspired, I want us to do. Because honestly, this is how we're going to change the world in these scary times, and it's through story. Well,
and I think everything that Felicity just said is important in terms of our topic today of, you know, creating a writing schedule and sticking to it, because you have to find and remind yourself of reasons to stay passionate. Because kind of like Joanne's comment here, which I'll read because it's great, but you have to find ways and reasons to stay passionate about this, because it can kill you. It's very difficult. There's so many, you're going to get 100 no's before you get one yes, and you have to just deal with that. And it's not always because the material just isn't working. People just don't connect with it or whatever.
They've got something similar.
I don't know how many times we've sent projects out in the past year and they're like, we just did a cancer movie. Like, I love the script. We can't do another cancer movie, you know? So you get comments like that all the time.
That's jolly.
That's a literal example of what a comment that we had. But nonetheless, you have to find reasons to stay passionate. Like Joe is saying, she's on a treadmill right now. Otherwise, she would type more, which ironically, this is a pretty long comment. But
Joe, you're amazing. Thank you.
I want to say how very accurate all of this is. Be prepared to work hard, because sacrifices, financial aid, and time will have to be made. live passionately, be disciplined, be respectful, find an honest mentor to keep you accountable. Mine is Max. Joe and I have been working for a year together. Find a healthy life balance, pay it forward when good things happen. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice little way to cap the end of our broadcast, because
We do have final announcements though.
we do have some announcements, but you've got to figure out ways to stick to your schedule, be organized with your time. Take this approach of, I have to work out all of these front end things before we get to pages. I promise you it's going to save time, and the draft is going to be that much stronger. By the time you're done with the actual page writing draft, it's going to feel more like a second or third draft. And that's where you want to be. You want to be making choices faster and sooner and more confidently, so that you can finish the script in 2, 3, 4, 5 months.
And then I just think, just be kind to yourself. Allow yourself, if writing really makes you feel good, allow yourself at least 20 minutes every day, and just say, I'm going to sit here for 20 minutes. And if you write nothing, you write nothing. If you don't think of a character, you don't think of a character. At least you know what? You sat down for 20 minutes, and how rare is that these days for you to sit and have a moment's peace for 20 minutes? Even if you're sat in front of a blank piece of paper, do that. Allow yourself this time. In the moments of quiet and inner reflection, all the answers are for everything in your life, whether you write it down as a script or not. So do that.
Before you dive in, I just want to mention, because I mentioned this earlier, but I have a bi-weekly webinar starting January 25th. I'm going to be hosting a webinar. We're going to have people in the webinar. It's going to be like an online class, basically, half education, half brainstorming, and I'm going to be helping you develop your materials. So I'm actually going to be giving you feedback every other week with email support outside of the workshop. And you can find that on the Improve Your Craft tab on the networkisa.org site. It's Story Farm Intensive, it's what it's called. Pretty inexpensive. Connect members get a discount. If you're looking to start the year off with an organized approach to your writing, then you should just jump in. It's not very expensive.
It's
and we've
accountable.
got 4 months and we can get a project done. Yeah.
So our final announcements are, if you're in Sundance, if you're at Sundance, if you're in Park City, we have our Table Read My Screenplay event, and it is on January the 26th. It's from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. There's a brunch involved as well, which is going to be amazing. It's a live table read of the screenplay winner, which is M. Rowan Mayer's script Cloistered. Now, I have read this script and it is going to knock your socks off.
It's a little raunchy.
It's so much fun. So if you're in Park City or in your Sundance and you are free on the 26th of January between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. and you fancy some brunch and listening to these incredible actors, the script itself is 36 pages, so it's not going to be long with the reading. But it is amazing. But you must register on the ISA site. Fast Track, final deadline, February 12th.
Final deadline.
Final
and
deadline.
Fast Track is our flagship fellowship contest, so you should be looking at Fast Track.
And we've had our Fast Track fellows are the ones who've done the best out of everyone for all the contests.
And we're still helping them over the last 4 years.
Yeah. You don't lose us.
No.
You think you're going to win a contest,
time.
It's going to be over. It's like it's just the beginning. I'm so sorry. We're offering submit one script and your second script is free. No code is needed. So if you are submitting to Fast Track, and the good news about that is we actually look for Fast Track people that have more than one script, because often in the room they'll say, I like the script, what else you got?
We're trying to foster careers through Fast Track. Yeah.
So, this is a great thing. So, even if you're a really strong one and the second one's a maybe, honestly, it's worth definitely entering for that.
Mm-hmm.
You must register on the ISA site, though, for that. No code needed.
Networkisa.org, and there's a Fast Track tab on there.
Creative Screenwriting Contest is now in the early deadline period through January 21st, and it's only $29
to enter a contest, $29 if you're in the contest circuit.
And
that's really cheap.
Also accepting entries on Coverfly. So the thing about that is that we're always talking about building. We've been talking about trying to stay positive, motivated, write scripts. Then we've been talking about the business of having somewhere to take your scripts to. And then the final thing is build up your writer CV. Contests do that for you. I know it's an investment. Everything's an investment. The ISA site has very verified contests on it, so you're not wasting your money. But to do these contests, to get the wins, to get the laurels, everyone wants something that someone else has liked.
Joe Bellew is a perfect example. She submits to contests big and tiny constantly, and she's received laurels and grand prize wins and semifinals high, top placements. And honestly, Joe, you could give us the number, but I think it's over 40 different contests over the past couple of years. And she's received writing assignments because she said all these different scripts, I think it's like 4 or 5 different scripts, have received laurels in a ton of contests. So it does work, even if they're relatively small contests and it's not nickel. You don't need to rely on the huge fellowship contests.
It's like winning an Oscar.
You need other people to say yes.
I think there are people that win Oscars who then their career literally goes down the toilet for a bit because they're overwhelmed by making the next right move.
You mean if someone wins the Nickel Fellowship?
No, yeah. So I think actually winning a smaller kind of acting accolade would probably mean that they would feel less pressure about the next move they make, and I mean, Nickel got 8,000 entries.
Sometimes more. I think it was 9,000 last year.
9,000 entries.
Yeah.
I mean, the competition is crazy. Whereas if you went for a verified, I mean, we're not asking you to kind of go for crazy people that don't give their prizes because that's crappy.
Yeah.
But I go for a verified contest, and actually you can build up your writer's CV. You can. It's literally a step by step, as we say. It's just a journey, and you should be enjoying the process.
ISA does everything it can to verify the contests that are on the site. So if you see a contest that's listed there, we've done our research, we've done as much work as we can to find out that these people are reputable. Very, very rarely do we have a response from a writer like, hey, this contest didn't really respond to me after I won or whatever. It happens 1 out of every 100 times, but I would say 99.9% of the contests on there have been verified and we're good, and that you can apply to those and they're real.
Yeah, and again, it's literally we want to help you make someone else take notice of you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just like it's I don't know. It's like being in the playground, isn't it? If someone fancies you, then someone else is going to fancy you more.
That's true. It's very true. All right, well,
with that amazing
we're going to continue drinking our wine and move our way into 2020 right alongside everybody. Thank you for joining us.
We really do
Joanne,
appreciate.
So Joe says 60 different contest placements and wins. So congratulations, Joe. She's been working hard. She's still working with me. I have call packages. That's what Joe, I think, is on now, where you can purchase a number of calls and use them whenever you want. So you're kind of holding yourself accountable as opposed to the weekly approach. But yeah, we've got plenty of options for everybody. If you guys need help, you need to be going to networkisa.org to see all those resources.
Thursday near you as well. Go meet some other writers. Let's build our community. Honestly, we can all help each other. Yeah.
All right. If you need to reach out, max@thestoryfarm.org if you're looking for support. Max@networkisa.org, Felicity@networkisa.org if you have questions about what the ISA is doing and what we have going on.
And do DM us for the producer and actor map.
Yeah, so that's an actual document that we're willing to give up to you guys. So, all right, well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We're going to be back in 2 weeks. We may have a special guest on that night. We're not sure yet. We're going to try to figure out, but we'll let everybody know. Yeah, just stay tuned. We have a lot going on. We'll see you in a couple weeks. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in.